and welcome to the latest edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. We're all about DC on this channel mostly, but I love so many different movies away from DC and so many different scripted TV shows, past, present, and maybe even future away from DC. But mostly, I talk about DC. As DC fans, we all like and love and dislike different things, and that's okay as long as we're constructive. If you see me criticizing James Gunn or anyone else, you'll see me attempting to be constructive. Sometimes my emotions may get the better of me and I may be somewhat slightly disrespectful, but if I go too far, I will delete what I say because I know I was wrong. I think it's okay to be wrong. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of being wrong. But this is a channel that tries to give its opinions, and this channel will always give its opinions on the news that's happening. I would like and love nothing more than a great, successful DCU that I can embrace. I would love nothing more than the movie coming out next July about my favourite character, Superman, being the kind of movie that I can embrace. I'll just be relieved if we get through the whole movie without Superman dying at the end of the movie. There's no question. The series finale of Superman and Lois certainly upped the game and puts more pressure on James Gunn because that show, damn, what a sophisticated, emotional show from day one. What a different take on Superman, but it never sacrificed what Superman and his support, and his supporting characters are and have always been. So there's no question, watching that finale, it was very, very uplifting, and it kind of told me why James Gunn wanted that show cancelled, because it's pressure. It's a well done show. Now we can talk about the rights and wrongs of cancelling a successful show. I personally think it's wrong. Now, Bitsy Tulloch, who plays Lois Lane in that show, constantly is defending James Gunn and Peter Safran. She's saying things like, it's disappointing that Superman and Lois was cancelled or was finished, and what was great about it, they gave it a definitive ending, and that was great. But I think it's wrong that a successful show with a huge following was cancelled. The official line, what we got from the CW president, the new CW president, was that they didn't want any competing Superman properties. And that's a shame, because Superman and Lois was doing something very, very different and could have gone on for another 3 or 4 years. And it's a shame that's not going to happen. Now, the showrunner, Todd Helbing, has, talked about his plans of potentially doing Darkseid. Zack Snyder, whether you like Zack Snyder, Zack Snyder's one thing for sure, he did Darkseid right. And he was going to continue to do Darkseid in his Justice League sequels. He got him right. He was very faithful to what Darkseid should always be. Smallville, before Zack Snyder attempted to do Darkseid, but they didn't have the budget for it. It was an over-ambitious attempt to do Darkseid, but I believe they failed with the visuals of the character. They did some interesting things, about the darkness that's in everyone, and Darkseid manipulating that darkness, especially in Clark Kent. But I think if you don't have the budget to do characters like that, don't do it. A great example is Alan Miles doing Brainiac. They didn't have the budget to do proper Skullship Brainiac, so they went a different way about him, but I think James Master's version of Brainiac on Smallville is outstanding because they weren't over-ambitious and only did what they could afford to do. Alan Miles understood that. So Superman and Lois has made James Gunn's job a lot harder. So there are a couple of DCU updates. I only really because James Gunn constantly says so much. And as I said before, if I sat here trying to remember everything he said I've seen on social media, I'd never get a day off. So I just stick to the important things. He was asked on social media or somewhere if G.I. Robot from Creature Commandos will be in Superman. Now, he said he doesn't want to spoil anything, but they are using a new technology in his Superman movie that would make G.I. Robot possible. Now this is the kind of thing that really excites me, because this tells me that this Superman movie could be more expensive and have a higher budget than I ever thought, and maybe we're going to get some really exciting things. So you should have James Gunn confirming that G.I. Robot's in Superman. Maybe he's in Supergirl. Who knows? Well, he didn't say that G.I. Robot isn't in Superman, but maybe he's using this exciting brand new technology on a character like Brainiac. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see for that. But that's an exciting update for me. G.I. Robot might be in Superman. Now, he was talking on The Hollywood Reporter. He was bigging up David Corenswet's performance as Superman, Clark Kent, and Kal-El, the last son of Krypton. He said he's a remarkable actor. He's one of the best actors he's ever worked with. And when we see him as this character and all his alter egos, he's going to freak us out at how good he is. I've always known that David Corenswet is a very capable, brilliant actor. There is no question about that. There is no doubt over David's ability to perform. He's a very good actor, and he's going to give it everything. You know, in a lot of ways, it's kind of irrelevant if he's a great actor, because we've seen great actors in bad superhero movies and bad superhero TV shows look really bad. Great actors can be made to look like bad actors if the director and, you know, the story hasn't been done properly. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've enjoyed James Gunn's comic book movies, and I've enjoyed Peacemaker. I'm not saying they're top tier of what I look for in those kind of things, but I have enjoyed them. I don't think he's ever missed. I don't think he missed with any of his Guardians movies. I don't think he missed with the Suicide Squad. That movie deserved to make more money than it did. There's no question about that. And now, you don't have to like his version of the Suicide Squad, but I think it's a great movie. And I think Peacemaker is a great movie. And I believe, I haven't seen it yet, but with the information reaching me from my friends who have seen Creature Commandos, and I've seen the pictures, I've seen screenshots with text. I spoke about this yesterday over on my extended 30-minute video on my YouTube, Movies TV Mad, that the details I've got are pretty impressive. The problem with Creature Commandos, it's slow off the bat. It takes 3 or 4 episodes to really get to the center storyline of this series. But if you can be patient with it, I think you're going to enjoy it. I think DC fans tuning in will stick with it. I think any members of the general audience will lose patience, because the general audience isn't that patient. But I think it will be successful. Certainly critics have liked it. I mean, I don't trust critics these days. I don't trust Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's all very, very corrupt. I'm not suggesting that James Gunn hasn't made a great Creature Commando series along with his producer and the guy show running that for him. Now, but James Gunn did say something very, very interesting. And again, I think it was over on his interview with The Hollywood Reporter. He was asked about what's canon and what's not. And he basically said he's picking and choosing stuff from the Suicide Squad. Not everything, I think, from the Suicide Squad. Most of the stuff from the Suicide Squad probably isn't DCU canon. For me, that's a shame, especially Bloodsport. You know, shooting Superman with a kryptonite bullet and putting him in the ICU. I would have loved that to have been a reality. And I think originally, in his original script, before he became co-CEO of DC Studios, and when the Suicide Squad was a DCEU property, I think that was going to happen. And I think it's a shame if that isn't DCU canon, because it's a fun thing. And it's good to see Superman challenged. And I'd like to know the whole mystery behind that. Who was behind that? Who paid Bloodsport to try and kill, or at least injure, Superman and put him in the ICU? I guess we'll never know, which is a shame. But yeah, James Gunn was saying that most of Peacemaker 1 is canon, apart from the Justice League cameo from the DCEU. He said the reason for that, and this is a really huge piece of information by the way, there is no Justice League yet in the DCU. I repeat, James Gunn says there is no Justice League yet in the DCU. Well, well, well. For a while now, James Gunn has been telling us that this is already a metahuman populated universe. There's plenty of metahumans. But he elaborated a bit more to the Hollywood Reporter. He said there's good metahumans and there's bad metahumans. And what I think he's doing here, he's using metahumans as kind of different sides of the left and right of the political argument in real life. So I think some metahumans are on the right side and some metahumans are doing the wrong thing. And it's up to Superman to bring these and inspire these metahumans to form the Justice League. And it could be that, this Superman movie is partially an origin story for the Justice League that will be formed. And maybe the Justice League will be formed by the end of this Superman movie. It's interesting that we don't get a Superman origin story, but we could be getting a Justice League origin story in this Superman movie. I think it's interesting, at the very least, that this is the way he's going at it. Of course, we know very little about this movie. So there's no Justice League in the DCU yet. There is plenty of metahumans who are not necessarily there to be heroes, and maybe some of them are profiting, maybe some of them are corrupt, maybe some people are trying to be heroes, but they're not exactly being heroes in the right way. So yes, that's a very, very interesting reveal. Now, in the Snyderverse, it was somewhat different. It was Superman's sacrifice that inspired Batman to form the Justice League. So that's very, very interesting. Now, whether or not Superman is killed off by the end of James Gunn's Superman movie, which inspires people to form the Justice League, I don't know. Listen, Superman is my character. I don't want him to die at an end of the Superman movie. We've done that. Snyder killed him, brought him back. We just saw the series finale of Superman and Lois, where Superman, dies as an older guy. And, it's a beautiful, emotional moment. If it's me telling that story, Superman's immortal, Superman never dies. I'd like to see Superman challenged, having to live life without Lois Lane, without Jimmy Olsen, right? And, without his parents and, having to go on and on as a hero and having to cope with the consequences of immortality. That's the kind of Superman story that I would be telling. I don't like the idea that he had a human heart in Superman and Lois. Some people say, well, couldn't you have had Doomsday's heart? That's interesting, isn't it? I don't know. Todd, the showrunner, Todd Helbing, is the one to ask about that. But it is interesting. I'm kind of surprised, and I'm also at the same hand not surprised that there isn't a pre-existing Justice League in the DCU. And it's going to be very interesting how that's formed. But I'm glad he said that, because I think obviously, and I don't know everything about Creature Commandos. I have no access to this show. I'm hugely frustrated and disappointed. I was so happy to have access to the Penguin as soon as it was being broadcast in America. They made sure they did that. With this show, we're going to get spoilers. I can't keep off the internet for the next 3 to 6 months. I don't know if I'm ever going to have access to Creature Commandos unless I pay for it, because it's a Max exclusive. They're not going to put it anywhere else. But this is the problem. To James Gunn, to Peter Safran, to David Zaslav, you want a huge universe and you want some of it partially on HBO Max. You have to make it available to people who, from no fault of their own, don't have access to Max. You should have done it. Netflix is the only streaming service that can be seen and broadcast in most countries around the world. The other ones are not available. For example, Prime is no longer available here in Cyprus. So I can't use Amazon Prime. I can't officially use Now TV, but I do. I can't use the others. I can't use Disney Plus. Not that that's a problem, because I don't bother with Disney Star Wars anymore. And, you know, I've got a lot, the Disney stuff that I do like, I've got on physical media, or I've bought digitally anyway. But it's hugely frustrating, and it's going to be frustrating to a lot of DC fans around the world. If you're going to create an interconnected universe where some of the stuff is on streaming exclusively, the DC fans around the world have every right to have access to this. And this is a flaw in their plan. So they have to do something about this. Now, by 2026, their deal in the UK with Sky Atlantic, will be done. And they've been saying that Amazon will be able to have access to Max, which means we can buy that streaming service and pay for it monthly via Amazon in the UK, which is a good thing. Depending where I'm living, if I'm back in the UK, that's great. If I'm here, I'm still in the same situation. But if the DCU succeeds, and I genuinely hope it does, we're going to get more and more stuff. Lanterns will be on Max as well. Now, I don't hold much hope for Lanterns. I've noticed, like, the conservative content creators already going after Lanterns. That tells you a lot. They don't really like Tom King, who's very much involved in that show. We'll see what it is, but it does seem very, very current day, and it's very, very worrying, because we should have had a great, epic Green Lantern movie, and, you know, representing all the Lanterns. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I still would watch Lanterns, whatever it is. You know, it's part of the DCU. We want to be watching this stuff. And DC fans around the world are not being given access, and that's wrong. You know your streaming service isn't available. It's irrelevant to me that Max may be available in every country globally by 2030. It doesn't matter. We're here. There's the first DCU show, the launch of the DCU will be around, you know, will be available on Max tomorrow in the United States, and where Max is available around the world. And it's simply not good enough that those of us outside of America, outside of the territories that have Max available to them, can't see it. And, you know, that's not a good thing. I'm not happy. And, you know, James Gunn, and I mean, look, it's not really Gunn's fault. It's not Gunn's fault that this is a streaming show. This could have been a movie easily. It's 7 episodes. They could have put those episodes together. They could have structured it as a movie and released it as a piece of animation. I saw an 8-minute piece of footage of the opening section of a the Lord of the Rings kind of animated movie. And, you know, I don't know when it's set or anything. It looked interesting. That looks like something that would have been better off on streaming, by the way. But if you can put that in cinemas, you can you can definitely put, you know, Creature Commandos as a movie instead of a 7-chapterized series, and put it together as a movie. But you didn't do that because you're trying to save your struggling streaming platform, and we're suffering through it because you can't do that. You can't do that. You're not offering the service. You're not helping your new interconnected franchise if we don't all have access to it. As I say, we're going to be spoiled now. Everyone's going to be spoiled. Personally, I don't mind being spoiled. If that's the only way I can talk about things, I will. I'll be spoiled. I don't give a shit about being spoiled. I'm not one of those people. I've always enjoyed peeling my present before Christmas Day and finding out what I've got. I'm that type of person. It's fine. It's exciting. And I can't wait to see this Superman trailer. I don't think we're far away. Maybe we get it today. I mean, by the way, today is Tuesday. You'll be watching this video the next day on Wednesday. And who knows, in America, is it a Thursday? I don't bloody know. You know, don't expect me to know stuff like that. I just make these videos. I can't work out when you're seeing them wherever you're from. That's a bit too much for me. I don't even have consistent times when I put up the videos because my internet's crap. It takes ages for me to upload these videos. So they're up when they're up at the end of the day. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I think it is frustrating. I do want to watch Creature Commandos. I do want to have a constructive opinion on it and, you know, review the episodes like I did Penguin. We reviewed all the episodes here on Movies TV Mad. I enjoyed doing that, and I gave you my honest opinions from my own point of view about that show. And I would have done the same with Creature Commandos, and at this moment in time, I can't do that. So in 6 months' time, it won't be worth me really doing reviews for those episodes because, you know, the duck is hunted by then. I may still review them. We'll see what happens. But whatever information I hear about, look, there'll be huge talking points about, you know, those episodes, and we'll see what we're doing. I think Grace Randolph did a great kind of non-spoiler review on Creature Commandos, and I think everything she said on her video is pretty much true. Not every, look, and I didn't agree with everything. She was saying the way women are represented, how men treat women. She doesn't like the way James Gunn's male characters treat female characters. Look, I think that's just totally BS. She's another Californian. They're very much on their feminism, and I ignore that. Grace Randolph's like Marmite. You either like her or you hate her. It's as simple as that. But I think most of the stuff she said about James Gunn and Creature Commandos was to the point. Because what I'm hearing about Creature Commandos, it's literally like the Suicide Squad. It's literally like Peacemaker. But these are different characters. She also said it didn't have too much of a great lead. She doesn't think that Frank Grillo was a great, lead character. I'll have to see when one day in the future I get to see it. So, look, the DCU is either going to succeed or fail. It's as simple as that. And, James Gunn has made decisions. He also spoke on Thanksgiving about thanking David Zaslav for keeping to his word and keeping the promises that he made to him. Now, I don't know what those promises are, but clearly James Gunn has been given creative freedom. Very interesting, and I might have made this point yesterday, I'll make it again. Now, Ping Pong Flicks, Chris Wans-Fenson keeps on saying, it's really, the DCU's good because James Gunn can do whatever he wants. And I can't even remember, I'm getting old so I forget stuff, right? But that's a good thing and a bad thing. Because if he's making the wrong decisions and he can do whatever he wants, that's going to become a problem for the franchise and it's going to fail. Now, I think a lot of his decision making when he's made comic book stuff in the past has been pretty good and it's worked out for him. So we will see. And as I say, you don't learn anything much about the DCU through Creature Commandos. I think it's the Superman movie. Once we've seen this movie, we will know. We will know if people have gone to see it, if it's made enough money, if it's a good movie, if it's done right by our favourite character, Superman. These things will be seen. There will be no hiding place. I've been saying this for a long time. The audience will decide James Gunn's fate. The audience will decide whether this film is successful or not. I don't even know if there's general audience hype and interest and intrigue behind this movie. I sure know one thing, that every DC fan I talk to is at least intrigued by the movie, even the ones who are angry about the way Henry Cavill and Zack Snyder were treated. Whatever side you are in this splintered fan base, everyone's talking about this movie and everyone's interested at the very least to see what this movie is. But DC fans are never enough. There's been that famous phrase from Grace Randolph again, the DC fans online and the DC fans in theatres. Meaning that, many DC fans don't go and support DC movies because the fandom's splintered. But it's not DC fans' faults. We are faults that they've had a lot of failures in films. And I spoke yesterday about only 4 out of the last 14 DC movies since Zack Snyder left DC being successful. That's not on DC fans. That's on the studio. Whoever's leading it, who has been running it, it's on them. And the crazy decisions they've been making since Man of Steel made $650 million. Ever since Man of Steel's box office came out, this studio, no matter the different people running DC and WB, have acted in a reactionary way. And they haven't solved the problem. Batman vs Superman made $850. They were reactive. And they cut half an hour from that movie, even before the box office for that movie You know, even before they released that movie, they were scared of the movie. They cut half an hour from it because Snyder wanted a 3-hour movie. And then when the movie didn't make sense because too much was cut from it, they then allowed Snyder to release, you know, in limited cinemas, his version of the movie, the Ultimate Edition. And then in the end, we all bought that on physical media and digital media. I was never confused by the movie, but you can see why a lot of people were with the stuff that was cut from that movie. Ridiculous. They then had David Ayer's Suicide Squad movie. They made him go back. There were rewrites. There were reshoots. It was never really David's movie. They never even had a test screening. David's confirmed this so many times for David's movie. So reactionary again. Then we went from Zack Snyder's Justice League to Justice League to Zack Snyder's Justice League again. An absolute disaster. Aquaman's a great movie. Shazam wasn't for everyone. It was a good film for families and kids, but it didn't make enough money at the end of the day. The only reason he made any profit is because it cost less than $100 million to produce. That's the only reason, not because it was really a popular movie. The reviews were very strong, but we know that doesn't matter. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad had a great Rotten Tomatoes score, but the box office was shite. So without the box office, without these things making money, you don't have anything. And you know, that's not me being sophisticated or knowing more than the average bear, the average fan. It's an industry. How many times do I say industry on social media or on these videos? Do you know what industry means? Business. We live in a capitalist state. Your stuff needs to make money. It's as simple as that. DCU needs to be successful. The Superman film needs to make a profit. You know, and because the DCEU was divisive from the very beginning, or very contemporary, to put it politely, you know, it didn't make the money, you know, the first two Snyder films didn't make the money that the studio wanted. They made money, but not enough. And they're two films, as you know, I absolutely adore them. But because it's a business and they have targets, if they don't reach those targets, they get reactive. Now, who knows what Zaslav's going to do? We've got a situation with the Coyote movie, and one of the people who was on that movie made a big statement on Twitter, and he was begging us to comment and share, and it was my pleasure to do it. And he was talking about, you know, WB not listening. They won't release that movie. You know, once a movie's finished, right, you've invested in it, you've got to release it. And Zaslav has a habit now of not doing that. It's a bad look. Basically, WB haven't learned anything from the pre-Discovery days with AT&T and then the Time Warner days. This is why the studio is on its knees. It's not because of COVID, it's not because of the strike, it's because they keep on making bad decisions. And their bad decisions have hurt DC, right? They had a decision to make, right? They decided to get to allow Christopher Nolan to make decisions on the DCEU from the very beginning. So, you know, because the reason the DCEU started is because David S. Goyer had an idea for a Superman movie while having writer's block while writing The Dark Knight Rises. That's how the DCEU was born. So he was his writing, he was Nolan's writing partner. He told Warner Brothers, yes, you've just made this great trilogy. Of course you can make a Superman movie. Then Nolan doesn't want to direct the movie. He doesn't believe he's capable visually of doing it justice. He brings Snyder in. The studio don't say anything. The studio at that point would have said, Zack's a very talented guy. But you see, the problem with Zack, and I don't know if it's a problem, Zack has to get his own way. Auteurs have to get what they want. There's no wiggle room with them. Like with Gunn, he's kind of an auteur, but I wouldn't say he's a total auteur. He has wiggle room. That's why he gets on with studios. That's why he gets on with Zaslav. He knows when to wiggle and when not to wiggle. But Snyder doesn't wiggle at all. And in the end, there was this civil war between him and the studio. It was no good for the fans of DC, and it was no good for him. It was no good for his family. It was no good for anyone. The whole situation was a mess, and they've been trying to dig themselves out of this situation ever since. In comes James Gunn. But the reality is here, as I say every single day, Creature Commandos was part of the Hamadaverse. James Gunn was writing a Superman movie under the Hamadaverse. Peacemaker 2 was happening under the Hamadaverse. Waller was happening under the Hamadaverse. I'd just like to ask you all one question, or someone who knows more about what's going on than me. If everything that's going on was already happening under Hamada, what exactly has changed? Where's the fresh direction? Where's the reboot? The reality is, whether this all succeeds or not, there isn't a fresh direction.